Brenda Thompson remembers the moment vividly. She was at the gleaming chrome coffee machine inside the opulent headquarters of Sterling Innovations on Tuesday morning, carefully measuring a splash of almond milk substitute into her artisan coffee blend. That's when Chad Sterling Jr., the freshly minted CEO and inheritor of his father's corporate empire, strode into the executive lounge. He offered no greeting, no acknowledgement, merely surveyed the room, his gaze sweeping past Thompson as if she were merely another piece of expensive, unwanted furniture. Thompson, his voice cut through the quiet hum of the expensive appliance, "Report to my office. Immediately." It was an order, not an invitation. Thompson had clocked nearly 11 years at Sterling Innovations, a significant tenure by Metropolis standards. During that time, internal records confirm she single-handedly built the now thriving client relations division from a mere concept. Company files document over 100 major contracts negotiated and finalized under her direct supervision, contributing millions to the company's bottom line. Furthermore, personnel records show she personally trained a majority of the specialists currently occupying the desks just beyond Sterling Jr.'s mahogany door. But these verifiable accomplishments seemingly held no weight for the new boss. His father, the legendary Victor Sterling, founded the company on principles of hard work and strategic partnerships. Chad Sterling Jr., however, appeared to believe his inherited title granted him autocratic power. Thompson followed him, attempting to maintain professional composure despite the abrupt summons. Inside the expansive corner office, Sterling Jr. didn't even bother to take his seat behind the massive desk. "You're terminated," he announced, his tone devoid of inflection. "Sterling Innovations doesn't carry dead weight. Your lack of drive is dragging this company down." Thompson registered the statement, initially processing it as a poorly executed management tactic. "Excuse me?" she inquired. "You heard correctly," Sterling Jr. retorted, nonchalantly shuffling a stack of financial reports, reportedly deciding on his lunch order simultaneously. "Security will escort you out after you've collected your personal effects. Effective now." Thompson stood motionless, processing the dismissal. She registered a distinct physiological response, yet her external demeanor remained controlled. No outburst, no immediate defense, no demand for clarification. Instead, a precisely calibrated neutral expression formed on her face. "Understood, Mr. Sterling," she stated calmly. "I wish you a productive day." With that, she turned and walked out of his office, posture erect. Internal sources report that colleagues observed her passage, sensing a significant event had transpired. Several employees reportedly began to rise, intending to inquire, but Thompson subtly signaled them to remain seated, indicating a desire to avoid further complication. She methodically packed the contents of her desk into a standard company-issued box. During the subsequent drive back to her Metropolis apartment, Thompson reflected on her 11-year investment in Sterling Innovations. Records would show numerous instances of late nights, forfeited holidays, and crisis management calls handled during significant personal events, including the period following her documented divorce proceedings. She had dedicated substantial personal resources to the firm. Now she faced summary dismissal. However, reports indicate her primary internal response wasn't anger, but a growing sense of inquiry. Why? The question persisted throughout the night, disrupting her sleep. Something about Sterling Jr.'s confident, almost casual delivery felt incongruous. The timing also raised internal flags. Sterling Innovations was on the verge of finalizing the lucrative Apex Holdings account, reportedly one of the largest deals in the company's recent history. Thompson had personally spearheaded the negotiation process for 6 months, developing an intimate understanding of the client's needs and objectives. She had, in fact, scheduled the crucial final review meeting for that upcoming Friday. And now she was no longer employed by the company. A critical question formed. Had Chad Sterling Jr. even consulted the Apex Holdings account file before acting? The following morning, Shortly after 9 a.m. Metropolis time, Thompson's personal phone displayed an incoming call from an unrecognized number. After a moment of deliberation, driven by lingering curiosity, she answered. "Brenda? It's Victor Sterling." The voice belonged to the company founder, the man whose signature was on her original employment contract 11 years prior. "I've just arrived at the office," Sterling Sr. stated, his tone audibly strained. "Can you explain why your workstation is vacant? What exactly occurred here?" Thompson hesitated briefly before responding factually. "Your son terminated my employment yesterday afternoon." A protracted silence followed, punctuated by what sounded like a sharp inhalation. "What?" Sterling Sr. demanded. "He stated my performance was substandard, labeling me lazy, and declared my position redundant," Thompson clarified. Another long pause ensued before Sterling Sr. spoke again, his words measured. "Brenda, did he review the specifics of your employment agreement?" Thompson expressed confusion. "The Apex Holdings account," Sterling Sr. pressed. "You were scheduled to finalize that contract today at 11 a.m., were you not?" Thompson confirmed the schedule. "Jesus Christ!" Sterling Sr. exclaimed. Background noises indicated frantic paper shuffling, followed by a loud impact, suggesting an object striking a desk. "Brenda, your contract contains a specific non-negotiable clause," Sterling Sr. revealed, "one I personally insisted upon following the acquisition issues 3 years ago. You are not just the account manager, you are contractually designated as the sole authorized negotiator for the Apex Holdings account." Thompson processed this information. "He cannot legally execute that agreement without you present," Sterling Sr. continued, his voice tight with urgency. "Not legally, not ethically, not even practically. That contract is null and void unless you are the signatory representing Sterling Innovations." A clear realization emerged. Chad Sterling Jr. had failed to perform basic due diligence. He was unaware of the contractual stipulation. The perceived betrayal began to recede, replaced by a dawning awareness of the situation's new dynamic: control. Sterling Jr. had acted impulsively, and the consequences were now aimed squarely back at him and the company. Victor Sterling terminated the call without further comment, the unresolved tension hanging in the silence. Thompson remained seated in her apartment, her coffee now cold, contemplating the situation. The newly appointed CEO, in an apparent attempt to assert dominance, had acted without consulting critical documentation. Sterling Innovations was now positioned to learn a harsh lesson about impulsive leadership and the importance of contractual details. The outcome remained uncertain. Sources indicate Brenda Thompson initially considered returning to the Sterling Innovations headquarters immediately, merely to observe the inevitable corporate implosion initiated by Chad Sterling Jr.'s blunder. However, another perspective, informed by 11 years of documented underappreciation and suppressed professional pride, suggested allowing events to unfold without her intervention. She didn't need to wait long for developments. At precisely 10:13 a.m., call records show an incoming call from Chad Sterling Jr.'s direct line. Thompson declined the call, allowing it to proceed to voicemail. Within 60 seconds, another call originated from the main Sterling Innovations reception desk, followed swiftly by calls logged from the legal department and then the accounting division. Thompson observed her personal phone display light up repeatedly with incoming calls from Sterling Innovations numbers but answered none. The voicemail notification persisted. Accessing the message, Thompson heard Chad Sterling Jr.'s voice, audibly strained according to audio analysis. "Brenda, hi, it's Chad," the message began. "Listen, regarding yesterday, there appears to have been a significant misunderstanding. It's possible my actions were precipitous. Your immediate return is required. It's urgent. Please contact me as soon as possible." The repeated emphasis on urgent was noted, contrasting sharply with the complete absence of any apology, even a standard corporate formality. Reports suggest Thompson interpreted this as poorly concealed desperation rather than genuine conciliation. She remained on her couch, taking a sip of her now cold coffee. At 10:32 a.m., her phone registered another incoming call, this time from a number associated with Sandra Miller, a former colleague from Thompson's department who had transferred to marketing some years prior. Thompson accepted the call. "Brenda, you will not believe the situation unfolding here," Miller reportedly stated, her voice low, suggesting an attempt at confidentiality. "Inform me," Thompson replied. "Chad just received a public dressing down from his father," Miller continued, "in front of the entire executive team. The conference room door was open. Victor Sterling walked in, slammed the Apex Holdings account contract binder onto the main table." Thompson registered this detail. "He brought the physical contract?" she inquired. "Affirmative," Miller confirmed. And he asked Chad Sterling Jr. precisely one question. "Did you actually read this document before terminating Ms. Thompson?" Chad attempted to deflect, mentioning strategic realignment and personnel reevaluation, but Victor wasn't having it. He turned directly to the specific clause, the one you always emphasized, designating you as the sole authorized negotiator for the Apex Holdings account. Miller paused. Background office sounds audible. That clause was specifically implemented for situations like this, as everyone except Chad apparently knew. Another brief pause. "Brenda, eyewitness accounts state he looked visibly unwell, extremely pale. The realization hit him. He's personally responsible for potentially losing the Apex Holdings deal." Thompson processed this information silently. "And Victor Sterling's response?" she asked. "He informed Chad directly," Miller relayed, "that if the Apex Holdings deal collapses, Chad's own executive position at Sterling Innovations would become subject to immediate review." This statement represented the first concrete indication of repercussions for Chad Sterling Jr.'s actions. "I don't have intel on your next move, Brenda," Miller added, "but current circumstances place you in a significant position of leverage." Thompson concluded the call with a brief acknowledgement. She then stood and observed the metropolis skyline from her apartment window. At 11:15 a.m., a text message arrived directly from Victor Sterling. The message read, "Brenda, I offer my sincere apologies for yesterday's events. I severely misjudged the operational readiness. Please come to the office, not solely to address the Apex Holdings situation, but for a private discussion." While the invitation was noted, Thompson was not prepared to return under the previous status quo. The issue extended beyond a single contract. It involved professional respect, established trust, and the value of her 11-year contribution, factors not rectified by panicked communications. However, Thompson determined a course of action focused on accountability. She composed and sent a reply via text message. "I will consider returning to finalize the Apex Holdings account negotiations contingent upon specific conditions. I require a direct preliminary discussion with Victor Sterling." After sending the message, Thompson changed from casual attire into business wear and prepared to return to the Sterling Innovations building. She arrived shortly after 12 p.m. Foregoing the standard employee entrance, Thompson walked through the main front lobby, a public space, presenting herself as a visitor. This action, observers noted, immediately drew attention, as her termination the previous day was widely known within the company. Her reappearance was interpreted not just as a return, but as a deliberate statement. The main lobby receptionist visibly reacted upon seeing her. "Ms. Thompson." "Brenda," the receptionist began, recovering her composure. "Mr. Victor Sterling is expecting you. Please follow me." As Thompson was escorted through the main office floor toward the executive wing, she noted a distinct change in the workplace atmosphere. Usual activity paused. Employees looked up from their workstations. A palpable tension permeated the environment. Victor Sterling was waiting outside his office door upon her arrival. He did not offer a smile. "Brenda," he acknowledged with a nod. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Thompson returned the nod but made no move to shake hands. Victor Sterling stepped aside, allowing her entry into his office. After Thompson took a seat opposite his large oak desk, he closed the door, leaned against it momentarily, and released a long breath. "I have made an error, Brenda," he began directly. "A significant one. I delegated excessive authority to my son prematurely. My intention was for him to demonstrate capability, not to dismantle crucial relationships before understanding their construction." Thompson remained silent, allowing him to continue. Victor Sterling moved to sit behind his desk. "His treatment of you was unprofessional, disrespectful, and has placed the Apex Holdings account, a deal representing over 6 months of intensive work, in serious jeopardy." Thompson offered a slow nod. "Yes, it has," she confirmed. "I re-examined your contract this morning," Victor stated. "Every clause. You were granted complete legal autonomy regarding the Apex Holdings account. The client is contractually obligated to recognize only you as Sterling Innovations' representative in these negotiations. That specific clause, as you know, was mandated following the Titan Corp acquisition difficulties." "I remember the Titan Corp situation clearly," Thompson stated quietly. "As do I," Victor Sterling replied. Sources confirm that Victor Sterling acknowledged Thompson's pivotal role in managing the fallout from the previous Titan Corp acquisition debacle. Eyewitness accounts from within the executive office report Sterling Sr. making eye contact with Thompson and stating, "Yesterday's events should not have transpired. You were treated unfairly." He then formally offered Thompson reinstatement to her previous position, with guaranteed full authority to finalize the Apex Holdings account. Reports indicate Sterling Sr. explicitly stated, "Any conditions you require for your return will be met." Observers noted a tone of sincerity, possibly tinged with regret in his voice. However, Thompson reportedly countered that the issue transcended the immediate deal, encompassing principles of leadership, accountability, and professional dignity. "I will return," Thompson is quoted as stating, "under the condition that all terms are documented in a revised employment contract specifying clear autonomy over the Apex Holdings account and explicitly prohibiting any interference from Chad Sterling Jr." Victor Sterling immediately agreed to these terms. Thompson then added a further stipulation. "This type of incident cannot be repeated, affecting myself or any other employee." Following a brief pause, Victor Sterling reportedly gave a slow, deliberate nod, affirming, "You have my personal guarantee." With the agreement verbally secured, Thompson concluded the meeting. Upon exiting Victor Sterling's office, Thompson observed Chad Sterling Jr. positioned further down the executive hallway. He was engaged in a staged conversation with a junior executive, though his attention was fixed solely on Thompson the moment she emerged. Thompson maintained eye contact and walked directly past him without hesitation. Observers noted a distinct shift in Chad Sterling Jr.'s expression at that moment, interpreted by some as the instant realization of his diminished control. By 1 p.m., the main boardroom was prepared. The Apex Holdings executive team, led by their CEO, Mr. Al-Fayed, arrived shortly thereafter, approximately 30 minutes before the scheduled meeting commencement. Thompson conducted a final review of the negotiation documents, verifying all previously agreed points. Mr. Al-Fayed is known in international business circles as a pragmatic leader who prioritizes trustworthiness. Any indication of internal instability within Sterling Innovations could jeopardize the deal. As Thompson placed the Arabic translation of the final terms on the conference table, she observed Chad Sterling Jr. pacing agitatedly outside the glass walls of the boardroom. Victor Sterling intercepted his son, and a brief, muffled but escalating verbal exchange ensued, culminating in Victor Sterling raising his hand sharply, silencing Chad Jr. Eyewitnesses report Chad Sterling Jr.'s face flushed visibly, and he directed a look conveying both anger and humiliation towards Thompson, before abruptly walking away. He was not seen again by Thompson for the remainder of the day. At precisely 1:30 p.m., Mr. Al-Fayed and his advisors entered the boardroom. Thompson greeted the CEO with a standard Arabic business pleasantry. Mr. Al-Fayed reportedly reacted positively, offering a rare smile. "You remembered," he commented warmly, acknowledging the cultural respect shown. The formal meeting commenced and proceeded without incident. After 2 hours of final confirmations, the Apex Holdings account contract was signed by both parties. Following the departure of the Apex Holdings delegation, Victor Sterling approached Thompson again, his demeanor reflecting considerable relief. "You salvaged this situation, Brenda," he stated. "My debt to you exceeds a mere apology." Thompson's reported reply was direct. "Sterling Innovations requires a leader who understands the distinction between authority and responsibility." Victor Sterling offered no counter-argument. Later that evening, as Thompson left the Sterling Innovations building, the accumulated tension from the preceding 48 hours began to dissipate. She had returned not merely as a reinstated employee, but as a professional asserting her proven value. Yet, she harbored no illusions that the conflict was fully resolved. Individuals like Chad Sterling Jr., according to behavioral patterns observed in corporate power struggles, often retreat strategically before initiating retaliatory actions. Within the following week, the successful finalization of the Apex Holdings account was featured prominently in an industry trade publication. The article, titled "Breakthrough in Cross-Border Negotiations," highlighted Sterling Innovations securing a historic partnership through tailored strategy and multilingual leadership. While Thompson was not named individually, internal communications confirm widespread awareness within the company of her critical role. Her corporate email inbox received numerous private messages of congratulations from colleagues, including junior staff she had previously mentored and managers who had previously overlooked her contributions, now praising her handling of the crisis. Thompson acknowledged these messages, but maintained a realistic perspective on the situational nature of corporate alliances. The general atmosphere within Sterling Innovations reportedly improved, with a return to normalcy observed in common areas. Victor Sterling had issued directives confirming Chad Sterling Jr.'s removal from high-level decision-making processes until further notice. Despite these developments, Thompson began detecting subtle irregularities. First, the reimbursement processing for her travel expenses related to the Apex Holdings meeting faced unexplained delays. Subsequently, routine documents submitted for necessary approvals were returned unsigned, lacking any justification. More concerningly, an email, purportedly sent from her corporate account, but which she denied sending, was flagged by the IT department. This email contained deliberately incorrect client data and had been forwarded to an overseas partner. Fortunately, Thompson's pre-existing strong relationship with that partner led them to contact her directly for clarification, mitigating immediate damage but planting seeds of doubt regarding her competence. Thompson reported the incident to Sterling Innovations' internal system security team. Their investigation concluded there was no evidence of external system compromise. The email originated from within the company's network. This finding solidified Thompson's suspicion. Chad Sterling Jr. was likely orchestrating these incidents. Having failed to remove her directly, the new strategy appeared to be undermining her professional reputation through sabotage, aiming to create an environment where she would either resign due to frustration or be dismissed due to manufactured incompetence. This pattern of subtle corporate sabotage was familiar territory for Thompson, recalling similar tactics observed earlier in her career. Brenda Thompson, sources reveal, recalled a similar pattern of manipulation from early in her career. Fresh out of university, she worked under a director notorious for indirect aggression, isolating targets, cutting resources, and subtly tarnishing reputations until resignation seemed the only path. But Thompson, now a seasoned Metropolis professional, was no longer that vulnerable graduate. She resolved not to be pushed out. Immediately, she began meticulous documentation. Every delayed email, every mysteriously altered file, every instance of obstruction traceable back to Chad Sterling Jr.'s influence. Insiders confirm she maintained detailed logs, understanding that in the cutthroat Sterling Innovations environment, documented evidence outweighs emotional appeals. She reportedly even kept a private, offline notebook detailing specific times, dates, and conversations related to the ongoing interference. Confirmation of her suspicions arrived one afternoon. Passing a designated conference room, Thompson overheard Chad Sterling Jr.'s voice raised louder than typical for a private meeting. "She exhibits instability," Sterling Jr. was heard stating, clearly referring to Thompson. "Since her reinstatement, her behavior has become erratic, occasionally aggressive. I question her fitness to manage high-pressure accounts like Apex Holdings." Thompson reportedly froze outside the door. "My assessment," Sterling Jr. continued, his voice carrying into the hallway, "is that we must initiate succession planning for the Client Relations Division. Thompson is clearly operating beyond her capacity." Another executive, whose identity remains unconfirmed but is believed to be a recent hire, offered a mild counterpoint. "But the Apex Holdings contract, she secured that under extreme duress." Sterling Jr. scoffed audibly. "Pure luck," he dismissed. "Sterling Innovations cannot operate on luck." After processing this exchange, Thompson quietly moved away, the calculated nature of his smear campaign chillingly apparent. He was actively poisoning the well, attempting to discredit her competence among senior management. That evening, Thompson remained late in the largely deserted Sterling Innovations offices. While contemplating the situation in a glass-walled meeting room overlooking the Metropolis skyline, Victor Sterling unexpectedly appeared. "Still here, Brenda?" he inquired. "I could ask the same of you, Victor," Thompson replied evenly. He entered the room, placing a folder on the table. "Your revised employment contract," he stated, "containing all agreed-upon conditions." Thompson reviewed the document. Its terms were robust and reflected their prior discussion. She nodded, indicating approval. "Furthermore," Victor Sterling added, "I have initiated a comprehensive internal audit. An unacceptable number of procedural irregularities and misfiled documents have recently surfaced." Thompson looked at him sharply. Victor Sterling met her gaze directly. "I am not oblivious, Brenda. I am aware my son's actions have continued." "Why haven't you intervened?" Thompson asked pointedly. A long pause followed before Victor Sterling responded, his voice heavy. "Because," he admitted, sounding more like a troubled father than a CEO, "I needed to ascertain the full extent of his behavior." "You're protecting the company's interests," Thompson stated. Victor Sterling shook his head slowly. "I am attempting to protect both Sterling Innovations and you, Brenda. But I fear it may be too late for one." Thompson closed the contract folder firmly. "I don't require protection, Victor. I require you to determine the legacy you intend for this company." His gaze lingered on hers before he turned and departed the room, leaving Thompson with the distinct impression that a larger confrontation was imminent. The atmosphere within Sterling Innovations grew noticeably colder the following week. Hallway conversations abruptly ceased when Thompson approached. Some colleagues offered strained smiles, others meticulously avoided eye contact. The internal audit was underway, a fact known throughout the building, creating palpable nervousness among the staff. While Thompson hadn't requested the audit, she acknowledged a sense of relief that the situation was being formally investigated. She needed the truth exposed, not just for her own vindication, but for the stability of the entire division operating under the cloud of Chad Sterling Jr.'s erratic management. Still, Thompson remained pragmatic, aware that corporate investigations don't always yield straightforward justice. Often, inconvenient truths lead to negotiated departures or are buried beneath layers of bureaucracy. That Thursday, Thompson was summoned to the internal audit team's makeshift headquarters, a repurposed storage room now functioning as a data analysis center, filled with files, computer monitors displaying spreadsheets, and whiteboards covered in process maps. David Chen, the lead internal auditor, greeted her. "Brenda, thank you for joining us. We need to discuss several recent irregularities." Thompson nodded and took the offered seat. Chen displayed a file on his monitor. "Firstly, regarding the email sent from your account containing incorrect client data. Our forensic analysis confirms it originated from a shared computer terminal located near the employee break room. Crucially, the login credentials were entered manually, not through any automated system." "Meaning someone physically used my login information?" Thompson asked. Chen shook his head slightly. "No, the data suggests someone possessed copied credentials. This wasn't a phishing attack. The breach was internal." Thompson folded her arms. "I reported that specific incident immediately." Chen offered a tight smile. "Yes, your prompt report was noted and appreciated. It corroborated other findings. We've identified similar instances: emails subtly rewritten, critical data altered in spreadsheets, required sign-offs removed from documents. Each incident traces back to shared workstations, and all actions were performed under your user profile." The implications settled heavily. "This was a coordinated effort," Thompson stated flatly. David Chen hesitated before confirming. "The evidence strongly suggests a pattern. We have narrowed the window of individuals with potential access during the relevant timeframes. Furthermore, log analysis reveals unusual activity patterns associated with the login credentials assigned to Chad Sterling Jr.'s executive assistant." Thompson remained silent, absorbing the information. Chen continued cautiously. "We are not making formal accusations at this stage. However, there is a clear documented pattern of sabotage seemingly intended to discredit you, and potentially others within your sphere of influence." Thompson clenched her jaw. "So, what is the next step?" "That," Chen admitted, "presents complexities. Victor Sterling has instructed us to compile our findings and prepare a formal presentation. Sources inside the Sterling Innovations Tower reveal that lead internal auditor David Chen informed Brenda Thompson that Victor Sterling demanded a direct, unfiltered presentation of the audit findings. Chen indicated Thompson's presence wasn't mandatory. "I will be present," Thompson reportedly insisted, making it clear she intended to face the accusations and accusers directly. Chen did not contest her decision. The night before the presentation was fraught with tension. Thompson reportedly spent hours contemplating the fates of several talented mid-career employees who had abruptly departed Sterling Innovations over the preceding year. Individuals previously identified as high-potential assets. What was once dismissed as standard corporate turnover now seemed potentially linked to Chad Sterling Jr.'s covert campaigns. The following morning, Thompson arrived early for the scheduled executive boardroom meeting. Victor Sterling was already present, standing by the window, his posture described by observers as that of a man bracing for impact. David Chen and two associate auditors arrived shortly after, carrying files and data drives. Chad Sterling Jr. made his entrance 10 minutes behind schedule, radiating characteristic self-assurance, reportedly engrossed in his smartphone. His confident demeanor faltered only upon noticing Thompson seated at the table. "She is not a member of the audit committee," he objected, pausing at the doorway. Victor Sterling, without turning from the window, stated flatly, "Ms. Thompson is here at my personal request." Chad Jr. shifted uncomfortably. "This meeting concerns internal confidential matters," he protested. "Confidentiality you seemingly disregarded when utilizing company resources to fabricate electronic communications," Thompson interjected. Her voice reported as calm, but cutting. Sterling Jr. scoffed, dismissing the accusation as ludicrous. At this point, David Chen intervened, formally beginning the presentation. "Mr. Sterling Jr.," Chen began, addressing Chad directly. "Our forensic logs show multiple unauthorized access events traced to credentials assigned to your executive assistant. These events directly correlate with the timing and nature of irregularities targeting Ms. Thompson's project files and communications. A clear temporal link exists." Chad Sterling Jr.'s practiced facade began to visibly crack. "This is conjecture. You're reaching. She's merely bitter about her prior termination," he retorted. Thompson met his gaze directly across the boardroom table. "You did not simply let me go, Chad," she stated firmly. "You actively sabotaged my work, and in doing so, nearly cost Sterling Innovations the most significant contract secured in the past 5 years, the Apex Holdings account." Victor Sterling finally turned from the window, his attention fully on his son. "I provided you with an opportunity, Chad," he said, his voice low but resonant. "Multiple opportunities. Yet your actions have consistently undermined the very individuals striving to build this company's future." Chad Sterling Jr.'s bravado completely evaporated. "This isn't what it appears," he stammered. "No," Victor Sterling interrupted curtly. "The reality is significantly worse." A heavy silence descended upon the room. Victor Sterling stood to his full height. "The board of directors will review this audit report in its entirety. Until their final determination, you are suspended from all duties at Sterling Innovations, effective immediately." Chad Sterling Jr. opened his mouth as if to protest, but no sound emerged. His final look towards Thompson was reportedly not one of anger, but of stark disbelief, as if finally comprehending that his usual manipulations held no power in this situation. He then turned and walked out of the boardroom in silence. After his departure, Thompson remained seated. Victor Sterling exhaled deeply, his shoulders slumping. "I have failed him," he stated, the comment seemingly directed as much to himself as to Thompson, blurring the lines between CEO and father. "You cannot lead an individual who refuses personal growth, Victor," Thompson responded quietly. "But you retain the choice of how to lead this company." Victor Sterling looked at Thompson, then gave a slow nod. For the first time since the ordeal began weeks prior, sources indicate Thompson felt a sense of resolution begin to take hold. 2 weeks passed following the dramatic audit presentation, but its reverberations continued throughout Sterling Innovations. Chad Sterling Jr. did not return to the office, his once ubiquitous smirk becoming the subject of hushed water cooler speculation. The board of directors acted swiftly. The audit report presented incontrovertible evidence, falsified emails, damning login traces, mysteriously deleted files, and documented attempts to misuse internal HR processes, all pointing towards actions directed or manipulated by Chad Sterling Jr. The findings painted a picture not just of personal vendetta, but of actions compromising the fundamental integrity of Sterling Innovations itself. His suspension was formally converted to termination. The official internal announcement cited breaches of ethical conduct and internal policy violations. No public statements were issued. No lawsuits followed. Just a quiet removal from the corporate roster. Nevertheless, news of the stunning downfall of the heir apparent spread rapidly through industry circles. Thompson, upon hearing the final confirmation of Sterling Jr.'s termination, reported feeling not triumphant but calm and centered. A sense of having weathered a severe storm and finally reaching stable ground. A few days later, Victor Sterling summoned Thompson to his office, closing the door behind her. He sat behind his desk with a closed folder before him. "I have dedicated significant thought to recent events," he began, "and to the future direction I envision for Sterling Innovations." He paused, allowing Thompson to listen without interruption. "Brenda, the leadership you've demonstrated over this past month surpasses what many executives exhibit throughout their careers. You protected a critical account, maintained absolute composure during public humiliation, and navigated targeted personal attacks with unwavering professionalism. That, he stated firmly, is the caliber of individual I need helping guide this company. He slid the folder across the desk. Inside lay a formal promotion offer, Director of Client Strategy, a senior executive position reporting directly to the CEO. Thompson looked up, surprised. I did not request this promotion, Victor. I am aware, he replied. That is precisely why you have earned it. After a moment's consideration, Thompson gave a small nod. If I accept this role, I require meaningful input into our path forward. My goal isn't merely to hold a title, but to actively participate in rebuilding this company's culture on a foundation of integrity. Victor Sterling smiled. That is exactly the commitment I hoped to hear. Later that evening, settling into her new, albeit temporary, executive office, Thompson reflected on the turbulent journey and the significant task of cultural repair that lay ahead for Sterling Innovations. While renovations commenced on her permanent executive suite, Brenda Thompson occupied a temporary office. Sources observed her contemplating the blank nameplate affixed to the door. Insiders speculate this prompted reflection on her 11-year tenure navigating the Sterling Innovations corridors, a period marked by significant, often unacknowledged, contributions. Extended work hours, salvaged high-stakes client relationships, and numerous crises managed discreetly. Previous analysis suggests Thompson adhered to a strategy of quiet competence, avoiding conflict to maintain operational harmony. However, recent events demonstrated the potential cost of this silence, nearly resulting in her professional ruin. The situation underscored a critical distinction. Asserting professional competence is not arrogance, and maintaining professional decorum does not equate to weakness. Thompson had faced underestimation, dismissal, and calculated sabotage, yet internal reports confirm she emerged without succumbing to bitterness, a significant outcome in itself. In the subsequent weeks, Thompson initiated substantial changes within the Client Relations Division, now under her strategic direction as Director of Client Strategy. Documented actions include the implementation of new interdepartmental communication protocols designed to increase transparency. Personnel records confirm the reinstatement of several employees previously sidelined or terminated under circumstances now viewed as potentially linked to Chad Sterling Jr.'s disruptive influence. Furthermore, Thompson spearheaded the creation of a confidential, anonymous internal reporting system aimed at preventing future instances of retaliation against employees voicing concerns. Observers also noted Thompson dedicating time to mentor junior staff members, some of whom had witnessed aspects of her ordeal and sought counsel on navigating corporate adversity. Her reported advice emphasized focusing on maintaining personal integrity during professional challenges. Regarding Chad Sterling Jr., reliable sources indicate he has been seeking positions at smaller firms located outside the metropolis region. However, his professional reputation appears significantly damaged following the Sterling Innovations' internal audit findings. Unconfirmed reports suggest Victor Sterling may have exerted influence to prevent wider public dissemination of the details surrounding his son's termination, possibly characterizing this as a final paternal intervention. Thompson reportedly made no inquiries into these rumors, indicating a focus on future objectives rather than past grievances. On one occasion, while traversing the main office floor, Thompson paused briefly outside the glass-walled boardroom where the critical Apex Holdings account negotiation took place. This location served as a tangible reminder of the entire sequence of events: the initial sabotage attempts, the urgent recall from Victor Sterling, the escalating panic within the executive suite, and the eventual successful contract finalization under duress. While the Apex Holdings deal undeniably altered her career trajectory, analysis suggests the true turning point occurred earlier, the moment she calmly acknowledged Chad Sterling Jr. termination order and exited his office without protest or pleading. This decisive action, rooted in a clear understanding of her professional value, established the foundation for her subsequent handling of the crisis and ultimately prevented her professional derailment by an entitled executive. Thompson refused to allow anyone, regardless of inherited status, to diminish her proven worth again.